Welcome to our YouTube video series on employment law, focusing on employee terminations. My name is Christopher Neufeld of Neufeld Legal, and in this particular video, we're going to be focusing on which type of employee tends to get the worst type of termination and severance pay package. Is it the salaried employee, or is this the employee that's paid on an hourly basis? And what we're going to find is that given the fact that the salaried employee tends to have all their wage components clumped together, structured together, from a legal perspective, from a statutory perspective, they have everything for the most part included in there. So they're working off of a largely singularized number. Unfortunately for the hourly employees, as we'll see, they have their pay structure broken down into many elements. So where it's a very basic hourly basis and there's not many components to it, there's not many additional payments that are being made, there's not a lot of additional work time in the sense of overtime pay, statutory working pay, then it's pretty straightforward, and it gets somewhat closer to what a salaried employee has, in the sense that there's clarity, there's not a lot of ambiguity and complexity. However, what you find, and here's the problem for hourly employees, is that when you increase the level of complexity, when hourly employees have multiple levels of pay, different pay rates in different circumstances, additional pay components, additional benefits, allowances, bonuses, all those complexities come to be added in, and they cause problems for payroll. And if you ever ask yourself, how does payroll work and who are the people who are managing payroll? Payroll tends to be not the most complex or the most well-financed operation in large and medium-sized corporations. Yes, they might have a large number of people, but the people who claim to have more sophistication, they're focused on larger financial transactions, the big transactions that they see the company moving forward on. And that is where the lawyers and the accountants also tend to spend a lot of their time. So payroll is underfinanced, underappreciated, underoperated. And when you have complexities, such as we talked about with respect to different pay rates, different structures, different payments being made, excessive overtime, allowances, bonuses, benefits, it makes it difficult to hit the correct numbers when it comes to making pay arrangements and termination and severance pay packages. So that where you have legislation that creates complexities in the determination of termination and severance pay packages, that tends to flow and impact those hourly paid employees far more than it does the salaried employees. And given the fact that the employers are not trying to overstress and trying to find where they might be underpaying people, and given the fact that they are somewhat disconnected from the main office, because the salary employees tend to be working at head office, closer to payroll, interacting, engaging with people from payroll, from the upper management. This also produces a situation where those individuals who are tighter to the office are going to be more properly compensated, more in line with what the laws say and what the statutes say. Conversely, the hourly employees, especially those who are further and further away from head office, working out in the field, working unusual hours, excessive hours, not on a very specific schedule, are not to be dealt with on the same level. And they're also, their perception from the office is oftentimes seen as somewhat overpaid for the work they're doing. It's a natural phenomenon that people perceive their work to be more vital than other people's work, such that the people in the office see themselves to be more pivotal and more properly compensated. They don't recognize oftentimes how much more additional labor, how difficult the labor is of the hourly employees, especially those who are far afield and work in arduous conditions, undertaking long hours, many times unscheduled hours, picking up allowances, bonuses, other benefits, other arrangements, overtime pay, and the like. So this causes the complexity to rise with respect to hourly employees. And when it comes to calculating their termination and severance pay packages, complexity is always a problem. And it's hard for the employee themselves to understand how the complexity is working against them, and how the fact that oftentimes, based on specific legislation and the statutory demands, that the calculations are oftentimes not done correctly, in the sense that they're not being calculated to the max. And that's just the way it goes. That where there isn't clarity, there is a congruity, and it isn't straightforward to calculate, a number is going to be pushed out with the expectation that since termination and severance pay packages, complex ones are not easy to discern, people are not willing to challenge them all that often, they're simply going to take it and walk away because lawyers are too expensive, and the employer, now the former boss, does not want to pay something where they're not getting any future benefit. It's an exit payment. So the least amount possible is sufficient. Whatever seems to be satisfactory to people to walk away and not challenge it, that's what they're going to pay out. And if there's a bit of a challenge, they push back, but that's it. And that's why hourly employees tend to get the short end of the stick when it comes to termination and severance pay packages. They have so much complexity in their pay arrangements that there is so much money that is oftentimes left off. And this is also not limited to the actual termination and severance pay package, but also precedes it, because oftentimes payroll is underpaid. And it's startling, it's shocking as to oftentimes how much it is underpaid. And this is oftentimes where the key for a legal challenge is based in, is that you have to be challenging both the termination and severance pay package, but as well as former payments, because there is a high possibility, or at least a higher possibility than with the salaried employees, that hourly employees have been underpaid, especially with the complexity and sophistication that we talked about, and the challenging stuff where people work arduous hours, overtime, allowances, premiums, bonuses, all that stuff comes into play. It tends to be, unfortunately, that those hourly employees get the financial shaft the most and find themselves potentially leaving tens of thousands, even $100,000 on the table if they walk away too quickly. Naturally, so much of this is based on the specific statutory regime of the location, state, or province that the person is operating in. So in certain places, the employer might be completely correct in certain circumstances. But then there are others, and we've seen them, where there's significant amounts of money that apparently the employers might not even be aware of that they are underpaying, but are rightfully due by law, by statute, under employment standards codes, employment standards acts, that are payable to those employees when they're terminated or fired. And it is in those circumstances that the employee really needs to pursue their money. And that is why you should be looking at it, irrespective of your thinking, oh, what could I be underpaid? Maybe a couple $100, a couple $1,000. You'd be shocked literally shocked, depending on the situation, as to how much certain hourly based employees who've worked for a lengthy period of time with complex pay arrangements are being underpaid both during the course of their employment and upon them receiving a proposed termination and severance pay package. That they really need to, at a minimum, talk to a knowledgeable lawyer practicing in their specific jurisdiction who can read through their pay statements, read through their termination letter, and explain to them whether or not there is the potential for underpayments and what it's going to involve to pursue what is rightfully due to them. Because we're not talking about some grand demand for excessive unearned money. We're talking about money that has been earned and is required to be paid by statute, by law. That is what we're talking about. And when it's required to be paid by statute and by law, it is important that you collect on that money because you've earned it. It's rightfully your money, and it's good for your financial well-being, but also for your families because the law sets it forth, and that's the requirement. So that's what you have to contemplate as an hourly employee versus a salaried employee. The importance of getting all that you've earned when you lose your job, whether it's based on termination, firing, or even if you quit your job, but mainly in situations of dismissal, either by firing or termination. Thank you.